This edition of Farming the Countryside is brought to you by Corteva Agriscience Range and Pasture. Your land, your herd, our commitment. Learn more at rangeandpasture.com/countryside. Here's a look at some of the work we've been doing with Corteva Pasture and Range on our farm.
Well, spring of 2026 here, I think our plan is look at the ultigraze in a couple of places where we need to do that just because we need the fertility, but we also need the weed control in some hard to get to places. But then we'll prioritize pastures that didn't get treated with NovaGraze or Adoracor last year, just knowing those will probably be problem spots. Evaluate what we did use NovaGraze with last year and see if we have enough annual Espadiza that helps with weed control, or if we need to go in and spray there again to help continue to promote that Espadiza and hopefully even some white clover.
White clover is really nice to introduce into these cool season grass pastures. It is very tolerant to lower soil pHs, to poor fertility, and so they're a little more forgiving than a lot of other legumes. But having white clover in there also is going to help you out with your nutritional needs for your cattle.
To see more from our farm and others, just go to rangeandpasture.com/countryside.
Hi, I'm Andrew McCrae. Welcome to our farm and ranch in northwest Missouri. My great-great-grandfather settled here in 1910, and I'm the fifth generation to grow crops and livestock here. As a farmer myself, I know the highs and lows of this life, the issues we confront every day, some new, some as old as farming itself. This show is a place to talk with farmers and others in the ag industry about topics that mean something to us, topics that can improve the present and future of our operations. This is Farming the Countryside. Casey Seymour joins me here on Farming the Countryside, host of the Moving Iron podcast and everything dealing with machinery. Casey, good to visit with you here.
Thanks for having me back, Andrew.
Yeah. So are you at home today? I know you're on the road a bunch.
Yeah, I'm back home. Got back home actually early this morning. So I'm back in my office here for the finish out the week. But yeah, we had some traveling around to do, and we have what it's like. We got places going, people to see, and we're out going after it. And we had some stuff in Kansas City at the office there, the new Farm Journal office down in downtown Kansas City. So had a meeting there, but made my way back, and we're got to go to Des Moines next week for something else. So we're all over the place this week.
Yeah. Well, you're out there for a variety of reasons, of course, and different things, but are you getting to a lot of auctions and those types of things right now? What are you seeing in the machinery marketplace?
Yeah, I've been paying attention to a lot of stuff's going on in the auction space. Since COVID, a lot of those, I used to love going to auctions, one of my favorite things to do. And since COVID, a lot of those have switched to online. So we have to watch them virtually now and then not so much in person. But, what we're seeing in the auction space right now is, go back, rewind the clock about a couple of years, and dealerships are really going through disposal of a lot of inventory, and they've kind of got themselves in a better spot than where they were. So they've kind of laid that off a little bit. Not to say there's still not some onesie twosie stuff going on out there, but the big massive, we're going to go out and sell 30 combines and 40 tractors in one day type thing. Like, we're not seeing that stuff take place. But we are seeing is a lot of farm retirement sales, some farm liquid, unfortunately, a lot of farm liquidation stuff, forced retirements and those kind of things popping up. And when you see those things get moved into the auction space, you're seeing some really good equipment get pushed through there, and the prices are reflecting that. So if you go back and look at where pricing at auctions were this time last year, we're up a little bit from year over year. I want to say we're up like 12% on certain stuff. What we are seeing a lot of stuff sell right now, in the age range that we're seeing stuff sell, is basically that 5 to 10-year-old stuff is really what you're starting to see surface mostly. And the 1 to 2-year-old stuff isn't really making its way through the auction as much, but we are seeing some of that pop in there. And all things considered, for auction value, a lot better pricing, a lot better supply. Like, not a lot of supply right now going through the auction space. So you're seeing some of that come up. To me, that's always a big indicator of what the marketplace looks like from a stability standpoint. When the auction price is every week's worse than the week before, we're not seeing that. We're seeing a very stable marketplace. We're starting to see it kind of gradually creep up a little bit, which is drawing some folks into the market. I will say this: if you go look at dealer markets right now, and a lot of my friends from the dealer space I talk to tell me a lot about, we've got a lot of 1 to 2 year old stuff. And then we got a lot of, the next kind of jumps into that 12-year-old stuff. And that stuff in the middle is really getting bought and moved very quickly when they bring it in. So still some obstacles out in the marketplace right now, but significantly more stable than it was 18 months ago.
Yeah, let's unpack some of what you talked about there, because we had several different things. And let's go to the dealers first, because you were
Sure.
talking about them. When we had the last big downturn, maybe 13, 14 and so forth, my perception was a lot of dealers had a lot of used equipment on their lots. And as you mentioned, they said, we're not going to do that anymore. So have they done a pretty good job this time as we go into a time of tighter margins, that they aren't stuck? I'll say stuck with a lot of equipment on their lots. What have they done differently this time than they did, a decade ago or so?
Yeah, so coming out of that specific time frame, you had when the rest of the world was kind of getting crunched by the Great Recession, ag was on fire, right? It was really doing well. 2010, 11, and 12 were some of the best years in ag, probably historically. We started looking at pricing and on-farm income and those kind of things. Obviously, that contracted in 13, 14, 15. Dealerships took a lot of stuff they had, 80% of what they had in most places, to auction and got rid of it that way. Got themselves into a good spot and kind of got everything squared away. That leveling out of the marketplace in about 2017 was where you really felt things kind of get back to normal. Dealerships could kind of go back to an even killed conversation with the customers that they were working with, because again, those customers were feeling the same pinch that the dealerships were when it came to on-farm income and all the different stuff that was out there. So that kind of fixed itself. Fast forward to 2020, COVID comes and shuts the world down, and it delays, just incredibly delays what's going on in the marketplace as far as getting tractors where they need to go and combines, those kind of things. Fast forward to 2023, the end of 2022, 2023, and everything that got canceled seemed like it all showed up at one time. So you had like 2.5 years worth of stuff hit the marketplace all in one swath, which also brought in 2.5 years worth of trade-ins at the same time. Flooded the market, went from 0 to 1 billion pieces of equipment in about 6 months. And so those dealerships took between 2022 and 23, 24 timeframe really had to go through a big liquidation, because it wasn't necessarily the number of machines, but it's the dollars associated with those machines and the interest rates on top of that, which were driving $3,500 a month worth of interest costs per machines. When you do that times 50 or 100, that adds up pretty quick, right? To a pretty big number. So you're starting to see that way through. Dealerships are still figuring their way through that right now. You look at how they're handling all the interest associated with those machines, and being a lot more conscious about what they're doing. A lot of the conversations I'm having with folks is they're limiting the number of machines they're selling, and new machines anyway, the number that they're selling, and because of the associated trade-ins that come in behind them. And that is, and I think that's something that's going to continue to happen. If you look at where order writing periods were for 2025 for 26 delivery, it was way off. If you go back to 2022, it was something like 65% less new machines got sold in 25 for 26 delivery than were sold in 22 when it was, when things kind of got escalated. So huge drop off in the number of machines. 26 orders for 27 delivery are probably going to look similar to each other, and how that looks. Don't really anticipate seeing anything there. It wouldn't surprise me if it rolled back a little bit, that were maybe 5 or 6% back from where it was to start with. So again, it's going to have a big effect on the used equipment space when you start looking at the number of machines that are actually out there available for sale, and what those machines are. Because the way that works is, you got to sell the 1 and 2 year old machine to a guy that's got a 3 to 5 year old machine, so you can have a 3 to 5 year old machine on your lot, and so on and so forth down the line. And so you got to keep that rolling and keep that turning, and that's something right now dealers are just, it's not, I want to say it's not happening, because obviously guys are buying equipment. It's just not nearly in the numbers of people coming banging on the door saying, hey, I want a new combine, a new to me combine, or a new to me row crop tractor, or something like that, with that $500,000 plus price tag. There's not a lot of people doing that.
if not as many people are buying new equipment, which doesn't surprise me, then are they still buying equipment? Are they buying the newer used equipment? And is that keeping that price up? And maybe at what point, if that price is going up, do they go back and say, I might as well just buy the new equipment? Where are we at in that equilibrium right now?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I look at it from the perspective, like you have a lot of 1-year-old stuff come and 1 and 2-year-old stuff on the marketplace now, significantly less than any time other in history, though, by the way. This is probably the lowest amount of machines that's been on the marketplace it was in my career, my 20-year career period. This has been way less than that. When I look at how what's driving folks to come in and play in the equipment game is a lot of conversations I've had with producers have been like, I typically trade every 3 years or 2 years or 5 years or whatever that might be, and just with the way the market is right now, I'm gonna extend that out maybe a year, maybe 2 more years. So the parts and service business at dealerships, obviously, there's a lot of that going on, but there are folks coming in buying equipment. It's just it takes a lot, and what we're seeing, one thing we are seeing, tracking, and really seeing this come through in the data is people are planning on buying a piece of equipment. It's that it's so late in the cycle when they come and buy it, right? So a good friend of mine, they were delivering planters that guys bought into Texas, North Texas, and Oklahoma 2 weeks into when other people were already planting their crops down there, right? So these planters are showing up, they got to get them ready and everything that's associated with that. And he said that wasn't a one-off situation, because I've probably done that 10 or 15 times so far this year in different places. And same with last fall going to combine and stuff like that. Well into combine season, and here's the combine getting delivered to the customer. Now, extenuating circumstances, there could be any number of things, but I need it. I'm ready to buy it. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and buy it now. I'm going to wait a little bit. Okay, I'm going to buy it now. And it's just it's contracting down the speed and velocity of which the machine comes through. Towards the end of the year last year, I was surprised at how many pieces of equipment were moved in that September to end of the year time frame. There's always a pretty good chunk of machines that get pushed through that time frame, but it was a bigger number than I had anticipated seeing it push its way through. So plenty of folks looking at stuff, plenty of folks out kicking tires and really getting their mind around what it is they want to do. It's just getting them to pull the trigger. It takes a little more work than it used to.
What are the strategies right now that farmers should consider if they're looking for new or used? Because you said things have gotten shortened down. What should they be looking at as far as if they're going to make a trade? Is there any strategy behind how I do it?
Yeah, I think one of the big things I've seen a lot of lately is interest rates, right? So there's a lot of dealerships that have hey, here's 10 combines or whatever it might be, and this list of 10 combines has 0% interest for 24 months, or a 12-month waiver, or the 12-month waiver followed by 4.9% interest or something like that. Which, if you look at standard rate right now, standard rate I think somewhere around 6.5–7%, right? So that's a big savings, right? I think some of those ones I've looked at where they do the 12-month waiver followed by 4.9%. I think the effective interest rate somewhere in that 3.5 to 3.7 range, which is probably pretty competitive if you still have a note back before all the stuff took off and ran up on interest rates, pre 2020. So it'd be very comparable to what you have out there. So pay close attention to what you see out there for interest rates. Take your time and really search that and work and walk your way through that. I think secondly is paying close attention to who owned the machine before the one that you're buying, if it's a used one, who owned it before it. What kind of service records can you take a look at and see what's been done to it and what needs to be done to it? What's your time frame look like for that particular piece of equipment to come through? One other thing, I used to work with guys a lot on doing this was, look at your cash flow and how does buying this machine right now effectively look at your cash flow. There was instances where the down payment money they needed was covered by the equity in the machine that they had, and they didn't have to make a payment for a year. So actually, there was no cash that had to come out that year for equipment. So that kind of helped them get in a better position. So take a look at that. And I think the last thing I would say is, and I talked about this a little bit ago, but truly understanding the machine that you got coming, right? And take the time and really study what you're buying, because stuff's not cheap anymore to fix. It's you got to really pay close attention to that. And I know some people like them and some people don't, but I've always been a big fan of extended warranties. And is the machine that you have, do they have some extended warranty left on it that you're buying? And if not, what's it look like to add some extended warranty? Because again, it's just an insurance policy to help you overcome some damages down the way when it comes to unexpected failure or something like that.
Let's talk about those extended warranties for a moment, because I do hear plenty of people, and myself included, that you look at them. How do you do the math on them? I guess you have looked at the math and said it's all right. And then with that policy, are you doing it with the dealer? Are you doing it through somebody else, or what policies are you looking at?
Yeah, so most dealerships have, they're captive, whether it's a Deere or Case or whoever, they've got some, and then a John Deere or a C&H extended warranty program that's out there. And there's some like machinery scopes a good one to look at. If you're looking at some stuff that's beyond, kind of at maybe outside of some of the stuff that the captives will do. The extended warranty to me, like I'm hit and miss on extended warranties when I buy them personally, right? So if I'm buying a brand new truck, I'm probably not going to buy an extended warranty because I've got 36,000 miles of warranty, and we just have to see what it looks like when you go from there. I think some of the things that you can look at is, and I'm just going to throw a number out there. If you're out there working your machine and something crazy happens, I've seen machines out of the factory break, blow up engines with 50 hours on them, right? Completely shell the engine out, right? It just didn't get put together right, or who knows what caused that. So just because it's brand new doesn't mean now that would be covered under warranty, obviously. But if it's a 500-hour machine that blows up and you've had it for a year or two, and it goes through that process, that's a $100,000 engine maybe that you're looking at to fix that. And if you trade it back in, well, there's issue. That $100,000 has to come from somewhere, right? So whether you trade it in and your reconditioning costs or whatever it might be, it's an insurance thing at that point and all the stuff that comes into that. I look at extended warranties to me as, unless you have money set aside someplace for these kind of things, they're worth the juice is worth the squeeze for me personally, because I don't necessarily have $12,000 or $15,000 to replace an engine in a used truck that we got. And my son, I got him a truck when he turned 16, and he probably had it for a year and a half, and some of the phasers went out in the engine, and it locked the engine up. Well, it cost me $7,500 to get that engine replaced. If I'd had extended warranty on that truck, which I probably couldn't have because of its age, but hypothetically, if I could have, it's not $7,500 I would have had to come up with out of thin air. And I think the same thing applies, but it's just on a grander scale when you start talking about farm equipment and what it looks like. So I always just looked at an extended warranty to me as it's an insurance policy to help you get it. Dealerships don't make a ton of money selling extended warranty programs, so don't think like they're, it cost me $6,000 extra to get this, and the dealership's making $5,000, but that's not nowhere near that at all. That money is just, it's just an insurance policy that helps you make sure that if something does happen, you're taken care of. And if it doesn't happen, then it doesn't happen. You can sleep better now, I guess. But there's you spend $6,000 on a combine, your combine fails. It don't take long to cover $6,000 on a combine repair.
Right. Let's look at the equipment market as a whole. Are there places that are hotter than others, whether it is regions of the country or types of equipment, combines, planters, so forth? What are you seeing out there in the data?
No, really what we're seeing is if it's that 5 to 10-year-old stuff right now is really come up in value. Greg Peterson and I do the Moving Iron podcast together, and obviously Greg's followed auctions his whole career, so he sees a lot of stuff come through. And a lot of stuff we've seen come through it. Some of the stuff has been some older stuff with really low hours, but we've also seen some stuff where we've watched some older combines sell that have, like an S670, for example, that sold in somewhere in North Carolina. It had 2,500 engine hours on it, which that's a lot of hours on a combine. It sold for $135,000, which is, I mean, probably $35,000 to $40,000 more than I've seen anything close to itself for, even on the high end, right? So watching that kind of stuff roll through now, is that the new norm? Probably not, but you're seeing those kind of one-off things come up, and really the story behind all these machines that we see that have some higher hours on them or older, those kind of things, is that they've told a really good story behind why the machine is what it is. They've also can show, hey, I greased every zerk every time before I got in it, right? And here's the documentation that shows all that. And here's all the engine oil changing. Here's all the repairs and those kind of things. They've told really good stories about the machines that are there. If you can't get a good story about a piece of equipment before you got to sell, you're going to get just the average price everybody else gets, and that's just how that is. So we're seeing a lot of that 5 to 10 year old stuff that moves through, go and work its way through there. One thing I will say is that with the amount of equipment that's been pushed through right now, that you see this happen when things kind of go through these cycles. That really good cherry stuff that's bringing good money right now, it's eventually kind of that cream gets taken off the top. And what's left kind of surfaces back up like the next best thing, and it kind of fills those same spots as far as dollars go, right? So you're getting maybe not the same machine, but you're paying the same price for it, right? Doesn't mean the market's moved or anything like that. It's just that's just the next best stuff available, and people are still paying this much for it, and they kind of work this way through there. And you start as the machines start to get less cherry, for lack of a better term, that you start seeing some auction prices kind of resettle in there, because I'm not going to pay you $75,000 for this one now, right? I'll pay you $75,000 for these other two, but not this one. And that's what you're starting to see happen. Some of that's kind of happening now. About the time we think that the market is kind of starting to kind of settle back down a little bit, we see some stuff like I just talked about, that combine, something like that kind of pop back up in there. But for the most part, the auction space is really being driven by that 5 to 10 year old stuff that's in really, really good shape, and it's keeping prices up, and it's actually carrying the lesser equipment up with it as well. So it's good to see that happen.
Does it surprise you at all with the margins that are projected for this year, and considering what's happened in past years, that we still have the strength we do?
Well, I just think it shows the resilience of the American farmer. I think a couple things there, but also shows you some of the equity positions that are out there, and the ability to draw back on some of that stuff, and how good business decisions that the American farmer has made over the last, when things were good, right? And made some good decisions on, hey, we're gonna buy down, we're gonna pay down a few things here and there. So it's good to see that. It does feel like the pressure on the mid-level, 2,000 acre to 7,000 acre farmer is real. You can really feel that. And a lot of those are older producers that maybe don't have a succession plan coming back in, and kind of quit growing their operation, and now they're ready to get out. You're starting to see some of that. But there's a lot of young farmers out there that are in that 1,000, 2,000 acre range that they physically either own or have paid off throughout some generational stuff or whatever it might be, that are leasing another 2,000 or 3,000 acres on top of that, and that's causing some problems. So it's a tight market altogether. But I look and see what these guys are doing, and it feels like they've made really good decisions when things were really good. And there's some guys that are just working through some stuff that it's just bad luck and working your way through it. But overall, if you would ask me, hey, we're going to be in this horrible downturn for 3 years, because it feels like these downturns are a lot sharper and a lot more, like the good time is a lot more constrained, and then the bad times a lot more constrained. But it's really, really epic what happens inside those shorter time windows. And this has been 3 years of a downturn, which that's not uncommon for downturns to be 3 to 4 years long. But this is just the stuff that's inside of this particular downturn. It's unlike anything else we've seen when it comes to interest rates, input costs, and commodity prices. It's just, man, it's just like there's just like a giant weight on the overall market right now, and we really need to see something happen, or a lot of that equity is just going to be ate up, and it's going to take a long time to get it back.
Before we wind up, you've mentioned it, but how can folks find you out there? The Moving Iron podcast, probably the best way.
Yeah, Moving Iron Podcast. You can see it on Farm Journal's YouTube channel. Go check it out there under AgWeb. You can listen to it there as well. But anywhere else you find podcasts, go there. You can find, you want to message me. I'm on Facebook, X, Instagram, LinkedIn, either Moving Iron Podcast or Moving Iron LLC, one of the two, and you can find me there. So,
Casey, always good to visit with you.
Appreciate you, Andrew. Thanks for having me on, man.
This edition of Farming the Countryside has been brought to you by Corteva Agriscience Range and Pasture. Your land, your herd, our commitment. Learn more at rangeandpasture.com/countryside.